Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Thursday Night Hockey Show. I'm David Valente. My partner, Travis Aurednik, is still doing business. It's business time for Travis. So he's off tonight. Got a packed schedule tonight, talking about some of the news of the league and some questions for our dealer departed teams off of the first round and featuring the four series that are currently going on. In fact, we're about to drop the puck in tonight's slate of games. It's only two games. Now that we move on to the second round of the playoffs tonight at 7 o'clock here in just a few minutes. The Florida Panthers will be looking to even the series with the Tampa Bay Lightning at a game apiece, and then at 9:30, St. Louis will try and even the series with Colorado. Um, Interesting games that occurred the other night between Florida. Florida looks very pedestrian, and Colorado, they've had a little bit of rust from being off, but taking away with so we'll get into those games here in a minute. Let's take a look at the news of the week for the NHL. Some of the outside of the playoffs. Malkin and Crystal Payne might be hitting free agents. Um, Apparently, during either the playoffs, late in the season or early in the playoffs, they received there was some lowball offers for the Penguins. So one or both players may walk. That might be the end of that long successful period for the Penguins that stretched from that 2007 Cup run until this year. So a good run for the Pittsburgh Penguins. If it is over, if not, I think at least they get one of them back. And if I was making the choice, I'd probably go for Letang over Malkin. I think Malkin's probably going to request more money, but I think Chris Letang on the free agent market is good. So anyway, Chris Letang, Malkin, two, two pieces of their Pittsburgh Penguins run of success over the last, you know, decade and a half now. So, um, but we'll see what happens when free agency opens on July 13th, or if the Penguins can get a deal for either one of them done before that date. Happy day. Happy day for Buffalo Sabres fans as the Leafs are keeping both Kyle Dubas and Sheldon Keefe. Sheldon Keefe not as big of an issue for me. I think the problem with Kyle Dubas as general manager of the Toronto Maple Leafs, as a and I don't see it as a problem as a Sabres fan, but as a if I was a Maple Leafs fan, they've had tremendous success over the last few regular seasons. They are regularly pushing the top of the division in the last few seasons. But when they get to the playoffs, they don't perform. Not to the levels, and you can say that for a lot of teams in the NHL. But this team has not made it out of the first round in uh, since 2004, since the end of the first George W. Bush administration. Um, you know, I don't know what to say. I mean, if I was a Leafs fan, I would be so frustrated at this point. I think the issue with Kyle Dubas is that he is way too reliant on analytics, and analytics will build you a great regular season team. And I don't think there's any denying that they have a great regular season team. They got a really, I mean, it's a great roster. I mean, you're talking, Matthews and Marner and Nylander and Johnny Tavares. Even your fourth liners were contributing, like Jason Spezza, who's like 4,000 years old. And Jason Spezza was probably one of their better playoff performers. Um, but what they're building, I kind of liken it to the Oakland Athletics. Same thing. They do well in the regular season. Off of and with the Athletics is more of a bargain basement roster that they get into the playoffs with, but they do well, but they just can't compete in the playoffs. Leafs are the same way. They use a lot of analytics to get players, and they just I don't know. They I don't think they take into any account some of the intangibles that it takes to win a championship. Things that Tampa does to build their team to be able to withstand even an offensive juggernaut like the Toronto Maple Leafs. Um, but again, it's for the Leafs. You go deep into the season. You go deep into the first round of the playoffs. You had in the last, I think, since 2013, 10 chances to close out an opponent, and you've gone 0 and 10. That tells you something about your team. Like there isn't that extra gear, that extra level of compete to get you past that round. And you can say, oh well, it's the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're the defending Cup champions. Tampa finished behind you in the season. Uh, you know, Tampa was they're hit and miss. They're very hot and cold. Even in this round of the playoffs, they're pretty hot and cold. Um, right now they're hot. Looking at the first game, it looks like they're just about to drop the puck in 3 minutes and 30 seconds in Florida. And the game's on TNT if you want to watch it. But they Tampa's hot, but they had a chance. I mean, they had Tampa on the ropes. They had Tampa. Uh, uh, they had tied Tampa. They were in overtime in Game 6, and just never looked like they were going to score in Game 7. And that's kind of a common theme with Tampa series. When Tampa gets you to the closeout game, Vasilevsky takes it to a different level, and I don't trust Toronto's goaltenders much to do the same thing. Yeah, Campbell had a couple good games, but he, didn't close out the series, and that's something that the Maple Leafs are going to have to address. I don't think Kyle Dubas does it. So, yay, good for me. I love the fact that they're keeping Dubas as the GM because that means Toronto is going to stay pretty stagnant. Good regular season team, even though my Sabres beat them 3 games and we're 11 seconds from, getting points in all 4 games. But we beat them. We beat them on Canadian soil during the, outdoor game, and, down the stretch, we handled business against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, I'm looking forward to next season and seeing where that goes, especially now that Kyle Dubas is staying. Uh Head coach of the Nashville Predators, John Hines, has inked a 2-year extension. Interesting. He's been with the organization for 3 years, ever since they got rid of Peter Laviolette. Um, he's done a decent job. They got into the playoffs this year, although they really faded over. And really, the schedule makers didn't do them any favors. But you know, they had a chance to avoid Colorado in round one, and they dropped a 4-goal lead to or 3-goal lead to Arizona in the last period of the season, and that meant instead of going to Calgary, they went to Colorado, and Colorado spanked them in 4 games. So, but he got some really decent seasons out of Philip Forsberg, Matt Duchene, and he's got a decent young roster. I don't know that it's ready for prime time. I know Travis is very high on Philip Tomasino, and he could be the next one in line. But the problem with the Nashville Predators is they've got a very large contract to get taken care of over the summer, and that's for one Philip Forsberg, one of the offensive engines of the team. If he leaves, that has some questions. We'll get to some questions about our recently departed playoff teams here in a minute. The NHL announced um, the 3 Coaches of the Year finalists, the Jack Adams Award. Florida's Andrew Burnett, New York Rangers Gerard Gallant, and the coach of the Calgary Flames, Daryl Sutter, are all nominees for the Jack Adams Award. They also announced the finalists for the Lady Byng Award. Winnipeg's Kyle Connor, Carolina's Jacob Slavin, and Jared Spurgeon of the Minnesota Wild. Gentlemanly player is what the Lady Byng is. Of course, Jack Adams is for Coach of the Year. So, a new format for the awards ceremony this year. So, only the top 5 awards are going to be announced at a special television show. Starting June 1st, they're going to start announcing awards. They did this to an extent during the lockdowns where they weren't meeting, weren't doing large gatherings, so they would announce the awards throughout the playoffs. All these awards are voted on prior to the playoffs. Um, so, uh, or are based on on the regular season. I think they start voting early at the start of the playoffs, but it's based on the regular season achievements. Um, but the 5 awards that'll be announced at the television show will be the Calder, the Hart, which is the MVP, is voted on by the media, the James Norris Memorial Award, which is the Defenseman of the Year, the Ted Lindsay Award, which is the Player of the Year, MVP, as voted on by the players, and the Vezina Trophy, which is the top goaltender, and of course, the Calder is the Rookie of the Year. Those will be revealed during a 1 hour show in the middle of the Stanley Cup Finals on June 21st. So that'll be an interesting change. Usually, they wait till the end of the season. It kind of sits in between the time the Stanley Cup Finals ends and the draft. So just a change here. I think they're trying to speed up the calendar a little bit. To get through that stuff and start getting ready for free agency and the draft, because they're going to start the next season on time and finish it on time. They don't have any of these extenders into the season, so um, kind of get ready to go back to the traditional hockey calendar starting next season. Patrice Bergeron of the Bruins announced he will either retire or come back as Boston Bruin for another season. He has not made a decision as yet. Depends on how he's feeling here in a couple weeks. He'd take a little bit of time off after the season as the Boston Bruins were eliminated in 7 games against Carolina, and see what happens there. And that'll be an interesting thing if uh, 2 seasons in a row, Boston loses a key cog down the middle to that where they're going to turn. So, Marc Andre Fleury of the Minnesota Wild, who is now will be an unrestricted free agent on July 13th. He said he will resign with the Wild if and the Wild do want to resign Fleury. The problem is, can they make it work? And that leads me to my questions for the teams that have dearly departed the playoffs. Let's pour one out for these 8 teams. Let's talk about Minnesota. So, yeah, Marc Andre Fleury wants to come back. Minnesota wants to bring Marc Andre Fleury back. The problem is, over 10% of their salary cap is eaten up in dead money based off of contracts they gave to Ryan Suter and Zach Parise. Um, how and the cap is not going to go up this year, even though there's inflation and all that stuff. Cap's not going to go up. I don't foresee just a ton of movement. I mean, there may be trades, but I don't. It's going to be very hard for teams to lay out cash for these high price free agents. I know that there are some teams that have been shedding salary. My Sabres have salary cap room, but with the economy right now, throwing my political hat, with the economy right now, it might be prudent for teams to put away the checkbook for a little bit, get a lay of the land, because who knows what the economy is going to look like in 6 months when we start rolling into another season, and inflation, uh, you know, um, possibly rises in unemployment, higher higher interest rates, things like that start eating away at people's disposable income. They're not able to buy jerseys, not able to buy season tickets. They're not able to buy individual game tickets. And hockey is so dependent on individual game ticket revenue versus the other sports. This is going to be a very interesting thing. Can Minnesota keep this very competitive window open? You got to. I'm going to call him a generational talent with Kirill Kaprizov. Um, can you waste a couple years of that generational talent, waiting for the salary cap situation to uh, work itself out? And I don't know that it can, because it's a lot of money, and I don't know that the teams are going to be. I mean, I think that perhaps Minnesota could trade with a team, but I don't know a team's going to want to take on $6 million of dead cap money for the next 8 seasons. If it was 3 or 4 years, maybe, but 6 or 8 seasons, no, no. So Minnesota's going to be dealing with this mistake for a long, long time. Uh, Toronto, been picking on them, and this relates to the news story and why I'm so happy that they decided to keep Kyle Dubas. Will they deviate from the completely analytics driven team that they built? Like I said, it's successful in the regular season. Toronto's not going to have to worry about putting butts in the seat. They always put butts in the seats. That's not an issue for them. But can they take that next step with just an analytics driven team? I don't think so. I think they've got to start looking at those intangible type things. They're going to have to get more solid in goal. They're going to have to get more solid on defense. Yeah, you can play kitty bar the doors hockey during the regular season, but the playoffs are a different animal. And while scoring it certainly is up in the playoffs versus previous seasons, you still need some defense to get alleviate the pressure. Let's talk about Nashville. Like I said, the big thing is the Philip Forsberg contract hanging over them. If they're not able to re-sign Philip Forsberg, and there was talk around the trade deadline that Nashville might trade Philip Forsberg to get some value for him. They still could once the season's over. They could deal him for something, but it's going to be much reduced for the value of the player that they're giving away, and that would be for a team that is looking to sign him. Um, giving them the opportunity, the head start on free agency. I think if Philip Forsberg refuses to sign in Nashville, I don't think there's any way unless he has a specific team he really wants to go to, and they can work out a trade. I don't think that he signs long term. He'll wait till free agency to see what kind of offers he gets because he had a phenomenal season this year. And there are going to be teams that look for offensive edges. Like I said, Boston, without Patrice Bergeron, you're going to be looking for a centerman. Um, you know, do they make a play for Forsberg? I don't know, but we'll see with Nashville. That's kind of a team in transition right now. Lots of good young players, but lots of questions going forward. Dallas, can they balance out the team to get both scoring and defense? If anybody watched the playoff games last night, and we'll get into the Calgary game. Calgary is a frustrated team. You know, and Dallas played lights out in that series. It was a defensive battle every night. And Jake Ottinger, bless his soul, man. I mean, he had over 50 saves and almost, or actually, 60 shots um, before surrendering the game winning overtime goal in Game 7. Um, he was betrayed by his forwards. His forwards were not good enough in that series to get the win. They're just a smidge better. They could have beaten Calgary. They could be playing Edmonton right now. But no, they just couldn't score. And it was kind of pathetic to watch. Boston, I think this is kind of a theme with Boston, Pittsburgh, Minnesota to an extent, but Washington. It's that window. They've been successful for a long time, but is that window closed now? So, Boston, if Bergeron retires, do the Bees take a step back? Does that window close for them? Who do they bring in? I mean, it's a lot of people want to play in Boston. There's a heavy contingent of either former college players that played in the Boston area or actual Massachusetts born players that would love to play in the Boston area, but Bergeron was kind of a one of a kind player. So, very heart and soul guy. The guy that played with a punctured lung, heading down uh, the Stanley Cup Finals. They lost to Chicago. This guy is a warrior and will take a big chunk out of the team if he does retire. And again, that would be the second year in a row that the Bruins have lost a key cog down the middle with David Krejci going back to Europe. Um, Pittsburgh, as we talked about before with Malkin and Letang, is the Pittsburgh Penguins run over if they don't sign either one of them, one or both of them. I think if they keep Letang, they're still a playoff level team. Um, but if they both walk, I think the window is done for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, I'll be the first to admit I've been calling for the Pittsburgh Penguins to be taking a step back for the last couple seasons, and it hasn't happened yet. Even with serious injuries to Sidney Crosby at the beginning of the season, Malkin being out for a couple months this season, it they still haven't done it. So, but the rumors are now that uh, the hot seat for the GM is getting hotter. One due to the fact that the Penguins had all those have all these issues with their contracts and what were reported as lowball offers to guys like Malkin and Letang. So Los Angeles. The key cog or key question going forward for them is can they resist the temptation to accelerate the rebuild? I think a lot of hockey pundits will say Los Angeles was a year ahead of schedule. They were supposed to be competitive for the playoffs, but they weren't quite supposed to make it. Like they were going to take that step forward, but not quite to the playoffs. They got to the playoffs. They competed really well. I mean, I thought that Edmonton was the better team throughout the series, and they certainly proved it in Game 7. Los Angeles never looked like they had a sniff of the net in that game. Um, but I think this is one of those critical junctures for that team as to their long term success. Do you take a couple of those young pieces and parlay them into a veteran? Do you dump a bunch of cap space on a high price veteran like a Geno Malkin to bring him in there to try and accelerate and quite possibly cost yourself down the road or get yourself in cap hell. So that's the question for Los Angeles. Can you resist that temptation to okay, we're in the playoffs now. We're going to be a world class team next year. It could happen. Even if they just stay the course. I think with the talent they've assembled through their draft picks, I think it's very easy to see Los Angeles get to the point where they are just competitive right now as they are. They've got a good team, and those players they acquired in the offseason, like Deneau and Arvidsson, uh, all fit in very well, much better than a lot of people thought. So I don't know that Los Angeles needs to do a lot of tinkering. The question for the Washington Capitals, bless their heart, they were so close. We talked about this last week. They're so close to really turning that series on its ear. They were up 3-2. The Florida Panthers have pulled their goalie. They were just this close from going up 3-1 in that series. Um, and then the final 2 games of that series, they held large leads, 3 goals in game 6, I think 2 goals in game 7, or I'm sorry, game 5, and then 2 goals in game 6. But you know, they're called the comeback cats for a reason, and they came back and shut down the Capitals. But the Caps had that chance, and this is despite having a really phenomenal penalty kill during that playoff series, they didn't allow Florida, which was putting up video game like numbers on the power play this season. They didn't get a sniff of the net, and um, so I don't know what more the Capitals could have done. But now they have to take stock. Do you take heart in the fact that you were very close with, the President's Trophy winning team and keep, continuing on, or do you start making changes to that roster, thinking that the window's closed and they need to restock the pool a little bit? I don't know. Um, they're going to have that conversation sooner rather than later. It's not trade Ovechkin or anything. I mean, but there are pieces that they need to start looking at, do we move long term with these guys? So, um, yeah, that's it for the 8 dearly departed NHL teams that made the playoffs but didn't make it out of the first round. Um, in their reverse order, they'll pick in the NHL draft from 17 through 20. I want to say 20. We'll lose 4 teams this round. So 24. So 17 through 24, they'll pick. Although I think, yeah, because of the if top team loses in the second round, then um, a division winner loses in the second round, they move to the back of the order. But anyway, that's the questions for those teams. Let's start taking a look at the playoff series that we got going on. So let's take a look at tonight's game. Right now, it is halfway through the first period. Tampa and Florida are tied at 0. We've got 4 shots on goal for the Florida Panthers and 2 for the Lightning. So actually, now it's 4-3. It's kind of a slow start for both teams. I think they're trying to feel it out. But boy, the I call this the battle for the bath salts. Florida versus Tampa. The Lightning made the Florida Panthers look very pedestrian, very average the other night. And I can't say I've seen that happen with Florida that all that often. Even in the games they lost to Washington, they looked potent. They put on tremendous amounts of pressure. Um, they didn't in that game. It was really odd to watch, almost like Florida was intimidated before they even got on the ice, and they've got to hit their playoff groove. And like I mentioned with the Capitals, Florida's got to get their power play on track, and they're both their special teams on track. They're 0 for 22 on the power play in this playoffs season. That's for a team that was way up there, first or second in the league in power play. That's unacceptable. And with the tools that they have, they should they should be clipping around at least 20%. Um, Not only that, but they gave up shorthanded goals, and they in game one they lost. They gave up 2 goals in the power play to the Lightning. So the Lightning has scored 2 goals in this series, and they've got to fix. Florida's got to fix this, or man, they are wasting a tremendous opportunity this season. That this is a stacked team, and they look in that Washington series. They looked absolutely amazing. Even in the games they lost, they looked so potent. And now if they don't get their act together, they could go down 2 games to none, heading back to Tampa. I wouldn't want to do that. Um, Other game tonight is the Colorado versus St. Louis series. Colorado, unsurprisingly, is up 1 game to none. I think surprisingly, though, the St. Louis Blues looked really good in that game. Um, you know, the Blues and Jordan Binnington took everything Colorado could throw at them, but Colorado in the end had a little bit more to throw at them and eked away a 3-2 overtime win in game one. I think it's going to be an entertaining series, but I don't think Colorado uh, takes more than 6 to win the series. I th- I think that game on Tuesday night was kind of deflating. Watching the body language of Bennington as uh, uh, when that goal went in, seeing him kind of laying prostrate on the ice, and I yeah, sometimes teams can let one game beat them twice, and so St. Louis is going to have to rally. They got good leadership in the room in St. Louis, and that hopefully they'll rally the team and kind of make a series out of this. But I just man, Colorado's a juggernaut right now. Uh, Last night's games, very interesting game in Carolina. Man, the Rangers had Carolina right where they wanted them, and for 40 minutes, they just They played a great defensive game, but they were counterpunching. Like, it was a very entertaining back and forth game. Both goalies were standing on their head. It was a nice, cross ice pass, that got the Rangers on the board in the first period, but then they stopped scoring. Like, both teams just yeah. I mean, they were getting chances, but both goalies were just standing on their head. Um, I thought that Igor Shesterkin was going to, pull this game out for the Rangers, but the problem with the Rangers is, like, didn't even skate on their side on the in the our offensive zone in that 3rd period. It was all Carolina. Carolina was all over them, and it took until, like, 2 or 3 minutes left in the game before a beautiful seam pass to, Sebastian Aho, and he, uh, took 2 whacks and finally got the puck in the net to tie the game, and then, in the overtime, Ian Cole, probably the most unlikely player, on the Carolina Hurricanes, all of 2 goals in the regular season, throws a puck in the net, and, of course, everyone says, in the playoffs, "Get the puck to the net, throw the puck at the net," especially in overtime, and he managed to hit the stick of the defender, Lindstrom, in front of the net, and it went under the glove and over the or under the blocker and over the leg of, Shesterkin for the game-winning goal. Um, Again, that's a very tough defeat for the Rangers because they for, 50 minutes of that game, 55 minutes of that game, playing as well as you could. I would have liked to see them put a little bit more rather than going into a defensive shell in the 3rd period, trying to get uh some more offense. They had, like, one really good chance in the 3rd period where, one of the young guys, I think it was Lafreniere, uh, shot it behind the goaltender and through the crease and missed just completely wide open empty net. I'm sure he was probably, uh, reliving that in his dreams last night, um, especially with the loss. Um, but yeah, that was a deflating defeat. Again, I think same with St. Louis is can the Rangers come back tomorrow night and kind of put that loss behind them? Because Shesterkin looked almost stunned that they lost that game last night. And how does that eat on a young goaltender like Shesterkin, who I think admittedly was very shaky in that first series, being his first time really high stakes playoff participation. So um, and then finally, the last game of tomorrow night, and the last game of last night. Best for last. I will tell you that was an entertaining game of what I saw of it. I had to go to bed early because it was a school night. Well, it was a work night, but I watched the first 2 periods of it. I thought Calgary's going to run away with this. They jump out to a 3-0 lead within the first 10 minutes. Chase goaltender Mike Smith. They bring in, Mika Koskinen, and, you know, they Calgary gets one back. Connor McDavid scores a nice goal. It's 3-1 going into the second. Then, things get really hairy in that second period, and, Calgary actually gets to a 4-goal lead, a 6-2 lead, and, Edmonton starts chipping back, and by the end of the second period, it's 6-5, and you're like, "Oh, wow, I can't believe they're gonna come back and win this game," because, I mean, it looked like they were just gonna get blown out of the building. Um, early in the 3rd period, Edmonton ties it up, now it's 6-6, and then I think amazingly, Matthew Tkachuk and that first line for the, Calgary Flames kinda said, "Okay, we can't do this." Put together a 3-goal outburst and put the game away. 9-6 final. I'm here for it, man. 15 goals in a game. I'm sure I'm sure Daryl Sutter, um, probably feels that game was a loss even though they won that game. Um, the dude is a defensive yeah, I think he loves defense more than anything, and to see his team give up 9 or 6 goals, blowing a 4-goal lead, that's gotta be tough for him. I mean, and you got to think that the at least I'm pretty sure Markstrom's gonna be able to come back from this, but that was not a good game for him. A 768 save percentage and, 15 saves on just 21 shots. Problem with Edmonton is they stopped shooting the puck. They didn't get enough shots the first period. They barely outshot the Flames in the 3rd period, but, man, they gotta get more rubber on the net. And, but the thing is the Flames had the puck all night. They were full value for all 9 goals. And, so Markstrom's gotta get better. And I said this at the beginning of the playoffs. Can the Edmonton Oilers, can Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and Morgan Riley, or not Morgan Riley, Zach Hyman, Evander Kane, can they outscore their defensive and goaltending deficiencies? Smith is a very hot and cold goaltender. He throws a shutout in game 7 of the first round and gets lit up like a Christmas tree in less than 10 minutes of work in game 1. 3 goals on 10 shots. Koskinen comes in, gives up double that. He got 6 goals and 37 shots. Although he played almost 57 minutes of the game, so um, you know, it's not good enough, not good enough at all. And uh, I'm interested to see how the rest of the series goes. I've seen series where you've had both teams kind of do a big offensive explosion, um, and will can they get the defense under control? I think the one series I'm looking at was Buffalo and Ottawa in 2006, and first game was crazy. I think it ended 7-6. Both goalies looked awful, and people were like, hey, Ryan Miller, you won the game, but you gave up 6 goals. Ryan Miller was phenomenal the rest of the series. So, whichever goalie decides to clean up their game from game 1, um, I will definitely have the advantage in the series. And it did look like the Flames took out 7 games of scoring frustration from that Dallas series in that one game. So, hopefully they save some for the rest of the series. But I do think that Calgary wins this series. They looked the better team. They had the puck. They looked very strong last night. So, um, anyway, that is it for the week. Let me pop in an ad. Our guy is on location doing his business, but if you want to get some business done with Travis Aurednik, the Deep End Antiques in Beckley, West Virginia, whatever you need in antiques, he does a lot of military surplus. He does a lot of gems and crystals and things like that. He also does furniture, uh, glass, blown glass, all that stuff. So if you're in the market for any antiques, take the drive out to Beckley, West Virginia, and visit my friend Travis Rednick at the Deep End Antiques, and you can find them on Facebook at /the Deep End Antiques, all one word. So, anyway, thank you all for joining us this evening on the Thursday Night Hockey Show. We'll be back on for uh, still in the second round next week, next Thursday. We'll be getting close to the end of some series, I think. But I'm really digging the schedule of every other night. Oh, we've got a goal in the Tampa game. Tampa has scored. It looks like Corey Perry. Second straight game he scored. He got a nice layup the other night to open the scoring for Tampa. But fourth goal of the playoffs at 12:06. Man, Florida's got to figure it out. So, and that was a power play goal. So that's another power play goal against for the Florida Panthers. So they got to get their special teams moving in the right direction. So, anyway, again, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to everyone next week.